last week, which is Secretary Clinton's emails.
Great.
We heard from the president in his interview with CBS about this, and he said that he first became aware of it in news reports last week. So I'm wondering if implicit in that is that the president and Secretary Clinton never emailed one another when Secretary Clinton was serving at the State Department.
That may be one conclusion to draw from the president's remarks, but it would not be an accurate one. The president, as I think many people expected, did over the course of his first several years in office trade emails with his Secretary of State. I would not describe the number of emails as large, but they did have the occasion to email one another. And the point that the president was making is not that he didn't know Secretary Clinton's email address. He did. But he was not aware of the details of how that email address and that server had been set up, or how Secretary Clinton and her team were planning to comply with the Federal Records Act.
Just to drill down on that a little bit, does that mean that he didn't know that he was emailing whatever it was, like HRC at clintonemail.com, or that, yeah?
Well, again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here, but I'm not going to, the point is the president did email with Secretary Clinton. I assume that he recognized the email, address that he was emailing back to. But again, the question here is about compliance with the Federal Records Act. And understandably, the kinds of things that a president and his Secretary of State talk about are pretty weighty national issues. I'm not sure that they drilled all the way down to the Federal Records Act. But what is clear is that, as the president said in his interview, is that the emails that he sends are properly maintained consistent with the Presidential Records Act. And that, by the way, would be true of any emails that he received from his Secretary of State. So, and the reason I raise that is because Secretary Clinton's team has pointed out, rightfully so, that a large number of the emails that they provided to the State Department in response to a request from her personal email system were already maintained on the State Department agency system. And the reason for that is she was emailing people with State Department employees with state.gov email addresses, which meant that those email communications had been properly preserved and maintained. The last thing I'll say about this is that what we know also is that the whole purpose of maintaining these records is to ensure that they can be properly used in responding to legitimate questions and inquiries from Congress and from the public. And I understand that hundreds of documents have already been provided to Congress consistent with their specific request out of these records.
Well, that's actually what I want.